The final month of training arrived faster than anyone expected. Sarah had been watching her students grow from nervous recruits into confident soldiers, but she paid special attention to how Marcus influenced the others without them realizing. Jake had become a careful, thoughtful soldier instead of a reckless one. The green aliens had gained confidence in their abilities. The blue aliens had learned to work better with other species. All of them looked up to Marcus, though they still thought he was just another student. Sarah had also been working secretly with Marcus to redesign the training program. They met after hours to discuss better ways to teach combat skills. Marcus shared techniques he had learned from years of real battle experience. Sarah provided the teaching methods to make those techniques easy to learn. The biggest problem with military training, Marcus told her one evening, is that it prepares soldiers for the battles we fought yesterday, not the battles they'll fight tomorrow. Sarah nodded. How do we change that? By teaching them to think, not just follow orders. Every battle is different. Every enemy is different. Soldiers need to adapt quickly. They were interrupted by an emergency alarm. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. A voice came over the intercom. All personnel report to stations. This is not a drill. Sarah and Marcus ran to the command center. Commander Jackson, the facility director, was standing in front of a large display screen. The image showed a space battle happening near the training facility. What's the situation? Sarah asked. Enemy raiders attacked a civilian transport convoy, Jackson replied. Our nearest combat ships are 6 hours away. The convoy won't last that long. Sarah looked at the display. 3 enemy ships were attacking 5 civilian transports. The civilian ships had no weapons and weak defenses. It would be a massacre. What about our training ships? Sarah asked. Jackson shook his head. They're not equipped for real combat, and we only have instructors here. No experienced combat crews. Marcus stepped forward. Commander, what if we use the advanced students as crew members? Jackson turned to look at Marcus. Are you insane? They're still in training. They know the basics, Marcus continued, and they've been working together as teams for months. With experienced instructors leading them, they might be able to help. Sarah understood what Marcus was really suggesting. He wanted to lead a rescue mission himself, using the students as his crew. It was dangerous, but it might be their only chance to save those civilian ships. It's too risky, Jackson said firmly. I won't send students into real combat. Then, send me, Marcus replied. Give me 1 training ship and a volunteer crew. Let the students choose if they want to come. Jackson stared at him. You're just a recruit yourself, Rivera. I can't put you in command of a rescue mission. Sarah made a quick decision. It was time to reveal the truth. Commander Jackson, she said formally, I need to tell you something about Recruit Rivera. Marcus looked at her with alarm. They had agreed to keep his identity secret. Sarah pulled up Marcus's real military record on her command pad and showed it to Jackson. The commander's eyes went wide as he read. Sergeant Marcus Rivera, Jackson whispered, but he's supposed to be dead. Long story, Sarah said. But right now, those civilian ships need help, and Marcus is the best combat leader we have. Jackson looked back and forth between Sarah and Marcus. Outside, the space battle continued. More civilian ships were taking damage. All right, Jackson said finally, but I'm sending Commander Chen with you as backup, and only volunteers from the student body. Marcus nodded. Understood, sir. Sarah called an emergency assembly. All the students gathered in the main hall. Marcus stood beside her as she explained the situation. There are civilian ships under attack, Sarah announced. We have a chance to help them, but it will be dangerous. This is not a simulation. If you volunteer for this mission, you could be hurt or killed. The students looked scared but determined. Pip, one of the green aliens, raised his hand. What do you need us to do? We need crew members for 1 training ship, Sarah replied. Engineering, weapons, communications, sensors, all the jobs you've been learning about. Jake stepped forward. I'll go. Then Zix and Cora volunteered. then Lisa and David. One by one, all 25 students raised their hands. "You don't all need to come," Marcus said quietly. "This mission only needs 12 people." "We're a team," Jake replied. "We train together. We fight together." Marcus felt a warmth in his chest that he hadn't felt since Outpost Charlie. These students had become more than just classmates. They had become a family. The training ship launched 20 minutes later. It was smaller and less powerful than a real combat ship, but it was fast and maneuverable. Marcus sat in the command chair with Sarah beside him as his second-in-command. The students took their positions at different stations around the bridge. They were nervous but focused. Their months of training had prepared them for this moment. "Enemy ships in visual range," reported Zix from the sensor station. Marcus could see the battle on the main screen. The 3 enemy raiders were much larger than his training ship. They had better weapons and stronger shields, but they were focused on attacking the defenseless civilian transports. "Pip, can you get me a communications channel to the lead civilian ship?" Marcus asked. "Yes, sir," Pip replied. He had stopped being scared and was now all business. Marcus opened the channel. "Civilian convoy, this is the training ship Horizon. We're here to help." A desperate voice came back over the radio. "Horizon, this is Captain Martinez of the cargo, ship Golden Star. We have families on board, children. Please help us." Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. People were counting on him to bring them home alive. It was the same feeling he had carried into every battle of his career. "Golden Star, we're going to draw the enemy ships away from you," Marcus replied. "When we do, take your convoy and head for the nearest space station as fast as you can." "Understood, Horizon. Good luck." Marcus turned to his student crew. "Everyone ready?" They all nodded. Jake was at the weapons station. The blue aliens were handling navigation and engineering. The green aliens were managing sensors and communications. The other humans were at secondary stations. "All right," Marcus said. "Let's go save some lives." The training ship Horizon flew straight toward the 3 enemy raiders. It was like a small fish attacking 3 sharks. But Marcus had a plan. "Jake, target the lead ship's engines," Marcus ordered. "Don't try to destroy them. Just damage them enough to slow them down." "Zix, plot an evasive course through the asteroid field," he continued. "Make them follow us away from the civilians." The plan worked perfectly. The enemy ships were surprised by the sudden attack. When they turned to chase the training ship, the civilian convoy was able to escape toward safety. But now, Marcus and his students were alone against 3 enemy raiders in the middle of an asteroid field. The real battle was just beginning. Incoming. "Fire!" called out David from the defense station. Enemy weapons lit up space around them. The training ship shook as near misses sent shock waves through its hull. "Return fire," Marcus ordered calmly. "Aim for their weapons and engines. We don't need to destroy them. We just need to keep them busy until help arrives." For the next hour, Marcus led his students in the most intense space battle any of them had ever imagined. They dodged between asteroids, fired at enemy weak points, and worked together like a real combat crew. When the regular military ships finally arrived, they found the 3 enemy raiders disabled and drifting. The training ship Horizon was damaged but intact, and all the civilian ships were safe. Back at the training facility, Marcus stood before his students one final time. Their graduation ceremony was the next day, but tonight, Sarah had revealed his true identity to all of them. "You came here as students," Marcus said to them. "Today you proved you're soldiers, real soldiers. I'm proud to have served beside you." Jake raised his hand. "Sir, will you be our instructor after graduation?" Marcus smiled. "I'm going to help Commander Chen redesign the training program. Future students will learn from everything we discovered." "Together," Pip squeaked up from the back. "Does this mean we'll see you again?" "You'll always be welcome here," Sarah answered. "This is your home base now, and Marcus will be here to help train the next group of heroes." As the students filed out, chattering excitedly about their adventure, Sarah and Marcus stood alone in the training room where it all began. "So," Sarah said, "ready to start training the next class?" Marcus looked around the room at the pictures of famous warriors on the walls. Soon, there would be new pictures there. Pictures of the students who had risked their lives to save civilians. "Today, I think," Marcus said with a smile, "we're going to train the best soldiers the galaxy has ever seen." Sarah smiled back. "I think you're right." Outside, the stars shone brightly over the training facility. Tomorrow would bring new students, new challenges, and new heroes. But tonight, Marcus Rivera was exactly where he belonged, home among the people he had sworn to protect and train. The legend lived on, not in statues or history books, but in the lives he continued to save and the soldiers he continued to inspire. And that, Marcus thought, was exactly how it should be. 3 weeks into training, Sarah noticed that Marcus had become the unofficial leader of the human students. It happened naturally. The other humans started asking him questions. They copied the way he moved and the way he held his weapon. Even Jake, who had been embarrassed by his first mission failure, now listened to Marcus carefully. Sarah decided to test Marcus with something more challenging. She created a new simulation based on a real battle she had fought in. It was called the Siege of Outpost Charlie. She had been there as a young lieutenant. She remembered every detail of that terrible day. "Today's exercise is different," Sarah announced to the class. "You will face an enemy that has you surrounded. You have limited ammunition. No reinforcements are coming. Your only goal is to survive until evacuation arrives in 2 hours." The students looked worried. This sounded much harder than the rescue mission. "Teams will be larger today," Sarah continued. 12 students per team. Marcus, you will lead. Team 1. Marcus stood up. "Commander, I don't think—" "You think what, Rivera?" Marcus looked around at his classmates. Many of them were looking at him with hope. They trusted him to keep them alive. "Nothing, Commander. I'll do my best." Sarah smiled slightly. That was exactly what a real leader would say. Team 1 included Marcus, Jake, all 5 of the green aliens, 3 blue aliens, and 2 other humans named Lisa and David. They were a mixed group with different strengths and weaknesses. The simulation began on a small hill surrounded by forest. Their outpost was just a few concrete buildings and some defensive walls. Enemy forces were closing in from all directions. "First thing we need to know is what we're facing," Marcus said to his team. "Pip, you and the other green aliens are the best with sensors. Set up a perimeter watch. Tell us everything you see." The green aliens scattered to different positions around the outpost. They were naturally good at detecting movement and heat signatures. "Lisa, David, check our ammunition and supplies," Marcus continued. "Jake, help me look at these defensive positions." Within minutes, Marcus had organized his team like a real military unit. Everyone had a job. Everyone knew what they were supposed to do. "Contact!" called out Pip from the north wall. "Enemy soldiers moving through the trees. Looks like 20 of them." "South side, too," reported another green alien. "Maybe 15. Marcus climbed up to the highest point of the outpost. He could see enemy forces surrounding them. There were at least 60 hostile soldiers out there. His team had 12 people and limited supplies. In the control room, Sarah watched with interest. She had programmed this simulation to be nearly impossible. Most teams would panic. Some would try to fight their way out and get everyone killed. A few might try to hide and wait for evacuation. But Marcus was doing something different. "Zix, Cora, I need you to set up overlapping fields of fire," Marcus was saying to the blue aliens. "Don't shoot at anything unless I give the order." "Why not?" asked Cora. "They're right there." "Because we don't have enough ammunition to fight all of them. We need to make them come to us on our terms." Marcus called his team together in the center of the outpost. "Listen carefully. We can't win a straight fight, but we don't need to. We just need to survive for 2 hours." "How?" asked David nervously. by making them think we're weaker than we are, then hitting them hard when they get careless. Sarah raised an eyebrow. That was advanced tactical thinking. Where had a new recruit learned strategy like that? Marcus's plan was clever. He had most of his team hide inside the buildings. Only 2 people stayed visible on the walls. When the enemy attacked, it would look like the outpost was barely defended. When they rushed the walls, we let the first wave get inside, Marcus explained. Then we hit them from all sides at once. We take their weapons and ammunition. Then we get ready for the next wave. That's crazy, Jake said. What if they kill us when they get inside? They won't, Marcus said with confidence. They'll be looking for a fight, not an ambush. We give them what they expect to see, then show them what they didn't expect to find. The enemy attack came 20 minutes later. 60 soldiers charged up the hill, firing their weapons and shouting. Only Marcus and Lisa were visible, shooting back from the walls. The enemy easily broke through the gates. 20 soldiers poured into the outpost courtyard, expecting to find a defeated enemy. Instead, they found Marcus's team waiting for them. The ambush was perfect. The enemy soldiers were stunned and disarmed before they knew what happened. Take their weapons and ammunition, Marcus ordered. Quickly! Now his team was better armed, but the enemy still had 40 soldiers outside. They'll be more careful now, Marcus said. They know we're not as weak as we looked. He was right. The second attack was slower and more organized. The enemy tried to surround the outpost and attack from multiple directions, but Marcus had planned for that too. He split his team into 3 groups. Each group defended a different section of the outpost. When the enemy focused on one area, the other groups would hit them from the sides. The second attack failed just like the first. Marcus's team captured more weapons and supplies. By now, Sarah was leaning forward in her chair, watching every move. Marcus was fighting this battle exactly the way she had fought it 5 years ago. Every decision he made was the same decision she had made. It was like watching a recording of her own memories. The final enemy attack came with 30 minutes left in the simulation. The remaining enemy soldiers were desperate. They threw everything they had at the outpost, but Marcus was ready. His team had built better defenses using materials from the defeated enemies. They had more ammunition. Most importantly, they had confidence. The battle was fierce, but short. When the evacuation ships arrived, Marcus's team had not only survived, they had defeated the entire enemy force. Sarah turned off the simulation. The students cheered and congratulated each other, but Marcus just stood quietly, checking to make sure everyone was okay. Outstanding work, Team 1, Sarah announced. You faced impossible odds and found a way to win. The students filed out of the simulation room, all except Marcus. He stayed behind, looking at the now empty holographic battlefield. Something wrong, Rivera? Sarah asked. Marcus turned to her with those calm, steady eyes. This simulation, it was based on a real battle, wasn't it? Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. What makes you think that? The terrain, the enemy tactics, the way the defenses were set up. It all felt familiar. Sarah stepped closer to him. Familiar how? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I think you know exactly how, Commander Chen. Sarah stared at him. She was beginning to understand. Marcus Rivera knew about the Battle of Outpost Charlie because he had been there. But that was impossible. According to his file, he was just a new recruit, unless his file was wrong. That night, Sarah stayed late in her office. She accessed military databases that most people could never see. She searched for any record of a Marcus Rivera who had served in combat. At first, she found nothing. His file was clean, too clean. Then she tried a different approach. She searched for all human soldiers who had fought at Outpost Charlie 5 years ago. There had been 13 survivors from that battle. Sarah knew them all. She had their names memorized. One name on the list made her stop breathing. Sergeant Marcus Rivera. But according to the official records, Sergeant Marcus Rivera had died 6 months after Outpost Charlie. He had been listed as killed in action during the Battle of Titan Station, the same battle Sarah had used as an example in her first class. Sarah's hands shook as she pulled up more files. Marcus Rivera had been more than just a survivor of Outpost Charlie. He had been the soldier who saved her life. The memories came flooding back. Sarah had been wounded during the final enemy attack. She was trapped under debris, bleeding badly. The evacuation ships were leaving. Everyone thought she was dead, but one soldier came back for her. He carried her to the evacuation ship while enemy fire exploded around them. He risked his own life to save hers. That soldier had been Sergeant Marcus Rivera. After Outpost Charlie, Marcus had become something of a legend. He led impossible missions and brought his soldiers home alive. He saved dozens of lives across 3 different wars. Then came Titan Station. Sarah pulled up the battle report from Titan Station. It was classified at the highest levels, but her clearance was high enough to read it. What she found made her sick to her stomach. The Battle of Titan Station had been a trap. Human intelligence had been wrong. Instead of finding a small enemy outpost, the human fleet had walked into a massive enemy ambush. Hundreds of ships were destroyed. Thousands of soldiers died, but the space station itself was saved by the actions of one man. Sergeant Marcus Rivera had infiltrated the enemy command ship alone. He had destroyed their communications and disabled their main weapons. His sacrifice allowed the human fleet to escape and the station to survive. The report said his body was never recovered. He was presumed dead and awarded the highest military honors. There were statues of Marcus Rivera across human space. Children learned his name in school. But Marcus Rivera was not dead. He was sitting in Sarah's combat training class, pretending to be a new recruit. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work early again. She waited for Marcus to show up for class. When he walked into the training room, she was sitting alone at her desk. "We need to talk," she said quietly. Marcus looked around the empty room. "Where is everyone else?" "I canceled class today." "Sit down, Sergeant Rivera." Marcus froze. For the first time since she had met him, his calm expression changed. She could see fear in his eyes. "I don't know what you mean," he said. Sarah pulled out a printed photo and placed it on her desk. It was an old picture from Outpost Charlie. It showed Sarah being carried to an evacuation ship by a young soldier with brown hair and steady eyes. Marcus looked at the photo for a long time. Then he sat down heavily in a chair. "How long have you known?" he asked. "I suspected from the first day. I confirmed it last night. The question is why? Why are you here, Marcus? Why are you pretending to be someone else?" Marcus was quiet for several minutes. Sarah could see him struggling with how much to tell her. "Because Marcus Rivera is supposed to be dead," he finally said. "And sometimes it's easier to be dead." "What happened at Titan Station?" Marcus's face went dark. "Everything went wrong. The intelligence was bad. We walked right into their trap. I watched hundreds of good soldiers die because someone made a terrible mistake." "But you stopped them! You saved the station!" "I stopped the immediate threat. But the people who sent us into that trap, they're still out there. They're still making decisions. They're still getting soldiers killed." Sarah began to understand. "So you disappeared." "I faked my death and created a new identity. I thought I was done with war. I went to a quiet planet and tried to forget everything I had seen." "What changed?" Marcus looked up at her. "I saw the news reports about new conflicts starting. I saw young soldiers dying in battles that could have been won with better training and better leadership. I realized I couldn't just walk away." "So you came back?" "I came back as a new recruit. I figured I could learn how training was being done these days. Maybe I could help improve it. Make sure fewer soldiers die for stupid reasons." Sarah leaned back in her chair. She understood now why Marcus had seemed so familiar. She also understood why he was such a natural leader. He had been doing this job longer than most of her other instructors. The other students don't know who. "You are," she said. "And I'd like to keep it that way. They're learning better when they think I'm just another recruit like them." Sarah thought about this for a moment. Marcus was right. The other students followed him because they trusted him, not because they were impressed by his reputation. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Let me finish the training program. Let me learn your methods. Then maybe we can work together to make training better for everyone." Sarah looked at the photo on her desk again. Marcus Rivera had saved her life once. He had saved countless other lives, too. Maybe it was time for her to trust him. "All right," she said, "but I have conditions. No more secrets between us. If I'm going to help you, I need to know everything." Marcus nodded. "Agreed. And when this training program is over, you're going to help me redesign the whole curriculum. We're going to make it better." For the first time since she had known him, Marcus smiled. "I'd like that, Commander." Sarah smiled back. "Call me Sarah. I think we're going to be working together for a long time." Outside the training room, footsteps could be heard in the hallway. The other students were arriving for their morning class. "So what do we tell them?" Sarah asked. Marcus stood up and straightened his uniform. "We don't tell them anything. Marcus Rivera the legend can stay dead, but Marcus Rivera the student still has a lot to learn." Sarah watched him walk to the back of the room and take his usual seat. When the other students filed in, they saw the same quiet, helpful classmate they had always known. But Sarah saw something different now. She saw a true hero who was humble enough to start over from the beginning. She saw someone who cared more about saving lives than getting credit for it. And she saw a partner who could help her train the next generation of soldiers to be better than any who had come before. The next morning came early. Sarah arrived at the training facility before dawn. She liked to prepare everything herself. Today would be the first real test for her students. She had designed a simple combat simulation. It would show her who had natural talent and who would need extra help. The simulation room was huge. It could create any kind of battlefield using holograms and force fields. The students would face enemy soldiers that looked and felt real. They would use training weapons that could stun, but not kill. Pain was a good teacher, Sarah always said. Students began arriving at 6 in the morning. They wore standard training uniforms and carried basic equipment. Most looked nervous. A few looked excited. Marcus Rivera looked the same as always, calm and ready. "Today you learn the difference between theory and practice," Sarah announced. "You will work in teams of 5. Each team will complete a rescue. Mission: you must save hostages from an enemy base. You have 30 minutes. She divided the class into 5 teams. She made sure each team had different species working together. In real battles, soldiers had to work with anyone who fought beside them. Marcus ended up on a team with 2 blue aliens named Zix and Cora, 1 green alien called Pip, and another human named Jake. Jake was young and eager. He talked too much and moved too fast. Sarah had seen his type before. They either learned to slow down or they got people killed. "Team 3, you're up first," Sarah called out. Marcus's team entered the simulation room. The walls disappeared, replaced by a rocky, desert landscape. In the distance, they could see a concrete building with guard towers. Red enemy markers showed where hostile soldiers were positioned. "I'll take point," Jake said immediately. "I've done simulations like this before." Marcus said nothing. He just checked his weapon and studied the terrain. The 2 blue aliens whispered to each other in their musical language. Pip, the green alien, was shaking slightly. "The hostages are in the center building," Zix said, reading from her scanner. "There are 12 enemy soldiers between us and them." "Easy," Jake said with a grin. "We go in fast and hard, surprise attack." Marcus finally spoke. "That will get the hostages killed." Jake turned to him with annoyance. "You got a better idea?" Marcus pointed to the left side of the enemy base. There's a drainage pipe that leads under the building. 2 of us create a distraction at the front gate. The other 3 go through the pipe and get the hostages out the back. That's too complicated, Jake argued. Simple plans work best. Simple plans work when you have better weapons and more soldiers, Marcus replied. We have neither. Cora, the second blue alien, looked between them. We should vote. Before anyone could speak, Jake started running toward the enemy base. Follow me, he shouted. Marcus shook his head but followed. The team had to stay together. That was rule number 1 in combat. Jake made it about 50 meters before enemy fire started hitting around him. The training weapons sent electric shocks through his body. He fell to his knees, stunned and unable to move. Jake is down, Pip squeaked in fear. Marcus immediately took charge. Zix, Cora, lay down covering fire. Pip, come with me. We're getting Jake and then doing this the right way. The 2 blue aliens began shooting at the enemy positions. Their weapons lit up the desert with bright flashes. Marcus and Pip ran forward in a crouch, keeping low to avoid enemy fire. Marcus reached Jake first. The young human was conscious, but barely able to move. Can you walk? Marcus asked. I think so, Jake mumbled. Marcus helped him to his feet. Pip, help me get him back to cover. They dragged Jake behind a large rock. The enemy fire was getting more accurate. They needed to move fast. New plan, Marcus said to the team. Zix, keep shooting at the front gate. Make them think we're coming. That way. Cora, you're with me and Pip. We're going around to that drainage pipe. What about me? Jake asked. You stay here and try not to get shot again, Marcus replied. Sarah watched from the control room above. She could see everything that happened in the simulation. Marcus had taken control of the team without arguing or making speeches. He just started giving orders, and everyone followed them. That was real leadership. Marcus led Cora and Pip around the side of the enemy base. They moved carefully, using rocks and hills for cover. When they reached the drainage pipe, Marcus went in first. The pipe was dark and narrow. They had to crawl on their hands and knees. Marcus moved slowly, stopping often to listen. He could hear enemy soldiers talking above them. They emerged inside the enemy building. Marcus held up his hand for silence. He could hear the hostages. They were crying and calling for help, but he could also hear guards nearby. Marcus pointed to Cora and then to the left. He pointed to Pip and then to the right. They would surround the guards. Marcus would go straight forward to the hostages. The plan worked perfectly. The guards were surprised and stunned before they could react. Marcus quickly freed the hostages. They were holographic civilians that looked and acted like real people. This way, Marcus whispered, leading them back to the drainage pipe. Getting out was harder than getting in. The hostages were scared and moved slowly. Enemy soldiers had discovered the missing guards and were searching the building. But Marcus got everyone out safely. The team completed the mission with 2 minutes to spare. Back in the briefing room, Sarah looked at her students. Team 3 succeeded. They saved all hostages and only lost 1 team member temporarily. Marcus, explain your strategy. Marcus stood up. The enemy expected a direct attack. When we gave them one, they focused all their attention on it. That created an opportunity to attack from an unexpected direction. And when your team leader made a mistake, I adapted. The mission comes first, not pride. Sarah nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand why Marcus seemed so familiar. He thought like a veteran. He acted like someone who had been in real battles. After class, she pulled up Marcus's file on her computer. According to his records, he was a new recruit from Earth. No combat experience, no special training. Just a regular human who wanted to serve in the military. But Sarah had been in combat long enough to know the difference between someone who had studied war and someone who had lived it. Marcus Rivera had definitely lived it. She decided to do some deeper research. There was more to this quiet student than his file revealed. And Sarah was going to find out what it was. Commander Sarah Chen walked into the training room with her usual stern face. She had been teaching combat training for 15 years. Every day, new students came to learn how to fight. Most of them were young and eager. Some were scared. All of them thought they knew what war was like. Today was different. Today, she had a special group of students from different planets. There were tall blue aliens from Kepler-7. There were small green creatures from the Zeta system, and there were humans. The humans always made her smile a little. They were so small compared to most other species, but they never gave up. Sarah looked at her class roster. 25 students total. She had trained thousands of students over the years. Most would become good soldiers. Some would become great ones. A few would become legends. But today, she had no idea that one of her students was already a legend. The students filed into the room. They took their seats on the metal benches. The room was plain and gray. There were no windows. The only light came from bright panels in the ceiling. On one wall hung pictures of famous warriors from across the galaxy. Sarah often pointed to these pictures during her lessons. "Welcome to advanced combat training," Sarah said in a loud, clear voice. "I am Commander Chen. For the next 6 months, I will teach you how to stay alive in battle. I will teach you how to protect your friends, and if you are lucky, I will teach you how to win." The students sat up straight. They knew Commander Chen was tough. Everyone in the military knew about her. She had fought in 3 major wars. She had saved countless lives. She never let students quit, no matter how hard the training became. Sarah walked slowly in front of the class. Her boots made sharp sounds on the metal floor. She looked at each student carefully. The aliens were easy to read. The blue ones looked confident. The green ones looked nervous. But humans were always harder to understand. Her eyes stopped on one human student in the back row. He was sitting quietly, not moving much. He looked to be about 30 years old. His hair was brown and short. His face was calm, but his eyes were different. They were the eyes of someone who had seen terrible things. "State your name and home planet," Sarah ordered, pointing to the first student. One by one, the students stood up and spoke. The blue aliens had names that sounded like music. The green ones made clicking sounds that the translation devices changed into words. The humans had simple names from Earth or the human colonies. When it was the quiet human's turn, he stood up slowly. "Marcus Rivera, Earth," he said. His voice was soft but steady. Sarah nodded and moved on. There was something about Marcus that felt familiar, but she could not place it. She had met thousands of soldiers over the years. Maybe she had seen him somewhere before. "Combat is not about being the strongest," Sarah began her first lesson. "It is not about having the best weapons. Combat is about making smart choices when everything around you is chaos." She pressed a button on her control pad. The room's lights dimmed. A holographic battlefield appeared in the center of the room. Laser fire flashed across the projection. Explosions lit up the fake sky. "This is the Battle of Titan Station," Sarah explained. "It happened 5 years ago. The enemy had more ships, they had better weapons, they had more soldiers, but they lost. Does anyone know why?" A blue alien raised his hand. "Better strategy?" "Good guess, but no," Sarah said. A green alien tried next. "Luck?" Sarah shook her head. "Anyone else?" The room was quiet. Then Marcus spoke from the back. "They had something worth fighting for." Sarah stopped walking. She turned to look at Marcus. "Explain." Marcus stood up again. "The enemy was fighting for conquest. The defenders were fighting for their families. When people fight for their families, they fight harder. They take bigger risks. They don't give up." Sarah stared at him for a long moment. Those words sounded familiar, very familiar, but she could not remember where she had heard them before. "That is correct," she said slowly. "The defenders of Titan Station fought like their lives depended on it. Because they did. She clicked off the hologram. The lights came back up. The students blinked as their eyes adjusted. Your first assignment is to read about the Battle of Titan Station, Sarah continued. Pay attention to the individual stories. War is made up of thousands of small moments. Each soldier's choice matters. The students began to pack up their things. Class was over for the day, but Sarah kept watching Marcus. He moved differently than the other students. He was careful, always aware of what was around him. That was the way veterans moved. As Marcus walked toward the door, Sarah called out, "Rivera, stay behind for a moment." Marcus stopped and waited for the other students to leave. When they were alone, Sarah walked over to him. "Have we met before?" she asked. Marcus looked at her with those calm, steady eyes. "I don't think so, Commander." "You seem familiar, and your answer about Titan Station was very specific." "I studied military history in school," Marcus said. "I found that battle interesting." Sarah nodded, but she was not convinced. There was more to Marcus Rivera than he was telling her. She would keep watching him. In her experience, quiet students often had the most interesting stories. "Dismissed," she said. Marcus nodded and left the room. Sarah stood alone, thinking. Tomorrow she would start the real training. Tomorrow she would see what her students were really made of. And maybe tomorrow she would figure out why Marcus Rivera seemed so familiar.